This episode of Kinda Funny Gamescast is brought to you by the OWC DIY PlayStation 4 hard drive upgrade kit, available now at maxsales.com. Now that Christmas is over, you have one thing left to do: install all of those new video games you received as gifts onto your PlayStation 4. But with games taking up to 50 gigabytes of storage space, your drive can fill up fast. If you need more storage on your system, quadruple the storage space on your PlayStation 4 with the OWC DIY PlayStation 4 hard drive upgrade kit. Do you know how hard it is to read a bunch of random letters like that? It's really hard, but you know what I'm talking about here. With the OWC kits included 2 terabyte hard drive and all the tools needed for installation to transfer your data, you'll be able to spend less time managing game data and more time playing games. The kit includes an enclosure so you can reuse the PlayStation 4's original hard drive as an external drive. There's even an instructional video to guide you step by step through installation. Visit maxsales.com/PS4 and step up your gaming with the OWC DIY PlayStation 4 hard drive upgrade kit. What's up, guys? Welcome to the first ever episode. God damn it, are we serious? As we end.
Oh, well, actually, they'll hear this.
They don't even know that. They don't even know that reference yet. They don't even know that reference.
There's a preview. Next episode 101 is it's fun. It's the game of the year. And when we get to the last topic, which is the kind of funny game of the year, there's a car alarm that goes off and it never stops. And it drives us crazy. But for now, welcome to the first ever episode 100 of the Kinda Funny Gamescast. Yay! We did things for a long time.
Yeah.
And now we are here
at episode 100.
So what we're going to do, we've been talking about this for a while, but we're going to do the Kinda Funny 100. What that means is we're going to have a discussion and list 100 games that we stand by, which means we're not talking about our favorites necessarily. We're not talking about the best necessarily. We're just talking about 100 games that Kinda Funny is like, yeah.
Seal of approval.
We fuck with this shit.
Sure.
And you should too.
Sure.
Is that going to include a lot of the best and our favorites?
Probably.
Absolutely. But that's the criteria that we're going here. Rules, because people need
got rules
for
already.
these lists
Okay.
and shit. A lot of people do only one entry per franchise. I ain't playing that game.
Okay.
If every Mario makes it, every Mario
So you're
makes
telling
it.
me right now we can put all the Patapons on there.
Every Patapon.
Perfect,
Patapon
perfect,
1,
perfect.
2, 3, Patapon Remaster.
I mean, we should get ahead of the curve and put Patapon Remaster on there for being serious.
Just you know.
Do we want this list to be timeless, or do we want it to be very dated in the pre-Patapon Remaster world?
It's up to you. You know, it's our list. We can do whatever the hell we want.
Good point.
You guys probably know by now that we're 100 episodes in, and this is the Kinda Funny Gamescast. Each and every week we get together, talk about video games and all the things we love about them. I'm Tim Gettys, joined by the coolest dudes in video games, Colin Moriarty and Greg Miller. You can get the show early on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. You can get the show late on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames. Either way, we appreciate you very, very much.
We love and appreciate you.
Mm-hmm. This is the last episode of 2016.
Wow.
Yeah. Worked out nicely.
It did. It's almost like you planned it.
Almost.
But you didn't.
Almost.
But almost.
So, what we're going to do, Kevin?
Yeah, right. Yeah, fucking
again.
right. You
Kevin?
think anything in this place works that way? Hold on. Now, Silent Bob! I said now, Silent Bob!
There it goes. It worked. There's a spreadsheet
Yay.
behind us that I'm going to update, and it's going to be really hard to see. But that's how
it'll be fun to see.
Well, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
But from at home, we'll have to do some maneuvering.
Visible and you're like, look, then it's, nobody can read that.
The wide will be fun.
No
Don't worry. It's going to be
words
fun.
there. Hey, we're going to fill it
Stop
out. It's going to be
worrying.
fun.
So let's just delete every column except the Master System, because we're going to get
That'll be
100
it. We're gonna
Master
go
System
right-
games up
right
there
down
right
there.
now. Ghost House, Ghostbusters.
I got my laptop in case we need to be reminded of some things, so I can Google to see what games or people are talking about and what other people have on
Gotcha.
their lists. Because that's how the best lists are made.
You look at other people's
Looking
lists?
at other people's lists and critiquing them, be like, I fucking hate your list.
Sure.
This is what you're missing, or this
Okay.
is what you like. Thumbs up to you.
Okay, cool.
Anyway, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go console by console.
Okay.
And kind of, I think that's a good way to start the conversation. But what inevitably is gonna happen is we're gonna get to a franchise, and then it's gonna be like, well, which one do we include? And then it turns into this whole thing of then we're gonna be talking about later gens, even the earlier gens. But
Okay.
whatever. It's a discussion. This is what this is about. It's about the fun of it. Also, let us know in the comments what games you think should be in the list, but that won't
It'll be too late.
because
We
it's
can't.
our list.
I mean, yeah.
You know, it's ain't your list.
No.
You can make your own list. Make your 100 best games of all time, favorite games of all time, whatever. Whatever your name is. Make the freaking Bob Saget.
Damn,
100.
Bob Saget watches the Gamescast?
Heard he's a big fan.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
huge.
All right, let's start with the pre-NES. because I don't know how many games that we will necessarily put
Now,
on
are
the
we
list
saying
from
that
there.
we need to put? Where this is just a brain? This is a Kickstarter. Is that where we're going? We're getting a old jump start on the old noggin here.
Yeah, the old kickstart. We don't have to put anything. Like when the Master
I mean,
System comes up.
there are a lot of pre-NES games that should be on the list.
I know, but I'm just saying. I didn't know if we're trying to hit like 5 on every system or something, or if
I
that's the
think it
criteria.
should be-
If we end up with 1,000 games on this list, we end up with 1,000
Oh,
games. We can
okay,
prune
good.
if we want or not.
That's
Also,
really
there's
gonna-
no
1,000.
fucking
That's really
rules
going to
here.
fuck up, though, Kind of Funny Gamescast episode 10,000. We're trying to do the 10,000 list. We already done the 10,000.
We'll do 100 then.
Okay.
Yeah. So pre-NES.
Pre-NES, Pong.
What are we dealing with here, Call?
You stand by Pong?
You got to put Pong in there.
Well, I mean, why? It's not a fun
Great.
game.
Yeah, it is. Come on. It's history.
It's a very important
it's
game.
paddleball.
It's very important. I mean, if you want to put Pong in there, I wouldn't necessarily say that.
I don't fuck with Pong.
Miss Pac-Man, I think, belongs on the list.
Now, which version of Miss Pac-Man?
In what regard? Like
Any regard? I don't know. Is there a specific
You're
one?
talking about the arcade
that,
cabinet?
the
like,
arcade, the 1980s
Arcade,
arcade
okay,
cabinet.
cool.
Or I think it's 1980. I think actually. Yeah, the arcade cabinet, Miss Pac-Man. Still, I think one of the most. I really think that's still one of the best pure gameplay experiences ever. It's so simple, you know, but very hard to master. And a really super important game. I'd also
Galaga.
You put Galaga on there.
Yeah.
I think that's
I
appropriate.
fuck with Galaga.
You fuck with Galaga?
Yeah.
Okay. I feel you.
I would put Breakout or Arkanoid on there. I wouldn't put both. And Breakout was first. I think Arkanoid's better.
Let's go Arkanoid then.
Yeah, I think Arkanoid's. You know, I love brick breakers, and it's one of those genres where you can't really. There's only been a few games that have done something interesting with it since then. Shatter being probably the best example of it, but I love Arkanoid. I think Arkanoid's great.
Now, the thing there for me, Arkanoid is great, but I think Peggle does it better. So I would say that Peggle deserves it more. Any of the Peggles.
They're different though.
They are different. But, you know, I feel like Peggle is just the idea, but improved and adds so much depth and layers.
Let's not count out magic
balls.
orbs.
Magic Orbs. I love Magic
never
Orbs.
played
And
it.
I played a lot.
Hyperbaloid HD.
Yeah. I mean, what you're saying, we can put as many games you want in there, but I think Peggle deserves to be on there too when we get there, not in this pre-NES.
But you
Dog
think
fight.
so? You think that even with Peggle in mind, Arkanoid still deserves a spot?
I really do just think they're fundamentally different games. Like they're both removing things from a screen by hitting them, but they're not the same. And I would say that they're both belong on the. I love Peggle. Scott Bromley introduced me to Peggle actually, and yeah, that and Plants vs Zombies he introduced me to that too. So I believe that belongs, but I wouldn't necessarily have to say at the sake of a.
Yeah, I don't
of the
think you have to
original
knock one out. I don't
Arkanoid
think-
is not the original Brick Breaker, but I think the best Brick Breaker.
Any other pre-NES?
Yeah, I would say Donkey Kong should be on the list.
Donkey Kong, OG Donkey Kong?
Yeah,
'Cause
arcade
here's my
cabinet Donkey Kong. Yeah.
I don't think so. I think Donkey Kong 94 deserves the spot.
Donkey Kong Country.
No,
Donkey
Donkey
Kong
Kong
94?
Game Boy. The 1994 Game Boy.
I never heard it called that. Yeah, I don't even know that I ever played the Game Boy port. So or
Because
the Game Boy version.
it's far superior. It includes all the Donkey Kong OG shit, but there's this whole. It's one of the best Game Boy games.
Okay, I'll defer to you.
I'm gonna
I'll
put that
defer
on
to you.
the
I'll defer to you
Game
on
Boy
that.
section.
I'll defer to you on that.
Donkey Kong. It's referred to as 94. It's not actually called
Put
that.
Tetris on there too if we're in the Game Boy section.
Tetris on Game Boy. I would agree with you.
Yeah, that is I think the definitive version of the game. I will say that two others that come to mind from this particular era, not that I necessarily know if you guys would agree, a game that really resonates with me that I actually really love is Mario Brothers.
The arcade one with the pipes?
yeah, I love that game. And really a prototype, an archetype, although not necessarily the first game that did static screen coin chasing and all that kind of stuff, but that game again is super skill based in the same way Donkey Kong is, where you can get really, and I am really good at that game, and you can get kind of crazy good at it, and I think it's kind of
Are you
interesting.
crazy good at it or just quite good at it?
I think I'm quite good. But you could get very good at it, and I like the loop. Back at IGN when we were in Brisbane a long time ago, we had a bunch of machines, and I used to play that game all the fucking time, like constantly in the lunchroom. I really loved it. So that's a game worth thinking about, but I don't think you guys have that support. The other one, I think, which is the best 2600 game, is River Raid. But again, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that game. That game's fucking phenomenal, and I think actually way ahead of its time as well. But maybe not. I want to have more of a consensus in these games. That you guys
I'm not familiar with
Raid.
River Raid. I never played it. Mario Bros. I would say I don't think that that makes the list. Mario Bros. Is a little iffy. So
And,
what do you think about River Raid? Do we put it on?
I mean, I think River Raid's awesome, but if
We'll
you guys
put it on. I mean, hey, fuck it.
River Raid never ends, and it's It's just a ship flying over a plane flying over a river shooting shit. And me and my best friend from childhood, Mike Pope, used to just play the shit out of it. And I just think it's a really great like game and a standout on 2600. If you go back and play a lot of those games, and I know maybe a lot of our audience is younger, didn't have or play an Atari 2600, those games do not stand up at all. And there are a few examples of games that do. I know people really love Adventure and stuff like that. I would say River Raid is one of those games.
Okay. Boom. It's on there. Can we move on to the NES?
Yes, we can be here all day.
Yes, we can. Let's do it. Let's begin. All three Marios.
Yeah, definitely. I will say this, Tim, and I think you'll agree with this, that let's say per capita, the NES only had, I think, just north of 700 Western releases. And I think that pound for pound, NES is going to have the most games per games on the console of any other console. In other words, like a massive swath of the NES library compared to, say, PS2 is a good example. PS2 had like over 4,000 games. And so even if you had 50 games from the PS2, and I don't think that would anywhere be near the number of games you put on the list, that would be fewer per game than what I think. I think that you can easily make a case for 30 or 40 NES games. Like,
Really?
Yeah. Because these are so. This is bless you. The quantum leap from Coleco and Atari and all that kind of stuff to NES was significant. Now we've seen jumps like that later on, but what an NES allowed you to do, compared to like look at Pitfall compared to Mario Brothers, they're actually the same game, but one's very rudimentary and one isn't. And you see that across genres and across games and across franchises and across series where I see like all 3 Mario games, all 3 Ninja Gaiden games, all 6 Mega Man games, all 4 Dragon Quest games. Like there's like you can go and like these games are masterpieces of gameplay and game design. Castlevania, all these things. Like you can get all, and before you know, you have like 50 of these games. And could you really argue with any of those? Like that's the thing.
I think you could. My thing is, I think that in the same way that you're right, the NES games are so far away from the 2600 games. I think that for pretty much all the franchises, the Super Nintendo version's better than the NES version.
But it doesn't detract from the NES version.
It doesn't. But I think that they improve. Like Link to the Past is better than Zelda.
Sure.
Super Mario World, in my opinion, is the best 2D Mario game.
I agree.
Correct.
Between World and 3, it's very close.
They're similar.
But for me, World is definitely, it takes the cake. And then in like Super Castlevania is, you know.
Ooh, don't say it.
People love that shit, man.
People do. Like Castlevania 4 is, well, we'll get to Castlevania 4. Because it's a similar thing you're going to find in the SNES. The SNES, I think, only had like 10 or 15 more games in the West than the NES did, without publisher constraints that were artificial during the NES era. So we're on both of those consoles. I actually think the SNES's library is a little overrated compared to the NES's library, which I think is a little underrated. But I don't necessarily disagree that there are, Super Castlevania 4 with Mode 7 and all that kind of stuff was like the whip and turning the stages that turn and stuff was incredible. I don't think it's better than Castlevania 3. But I will say that Super Mario World is better than Super Mario 3, although they're both 10s.
Exactly.
So like that's the problem. And I would say the same thing about like Mega Man. So when we did the top 100 NES games at IGN many years ago, one of the arguments was like the 6 Mega Man games are better than almost all of the games on the list. Like, but should you clog the list up with all of them? That was a huge argument we had.
And that's the argument we need to have here. Because it's like, there needs to be some type of pruning, right? And I feel like in some cases, the entire franchise makes it just by default. In some cases, it doesn't. Do you really think all 6 Mega Man games?
I think that if
I would make a case for all 3 Mario games.
Well, they're different.
So then that's the reason why. Is they're different enough that I'm like, all 3 belong to be there. If I had to boot one, it would be the first one.
Ooh.
I think like because Mario 2, I think is way different enough. And Mario 1 is fucking fantastic. But I would rather give the spot to 2 because we have 3 and we were also for sure gonna have World.
Yeah, I mean the thing is that I would never even consider a world in which we were doing a list like this, and all 3 of them weren't on the list anyway. So it's. But you're right in the sense that Super Mario Brothers is the most important game ever made. I don't think there's going to be a game ever more important, and that game, it holds up so incredibly as people with the mini NES or whatever the fuck it's called. I can never remember what it's called. Classic NES.
Classic.
Is proving, I think, to a lot of people, maybe for the first time or maybe reminding them. But yeah, with Mega Man specifically, I think I might remove 1. But 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are really like probably the best platformers on the console in terms of shooty platformers. Now, I mean, obviously, Mario would take the cake, I think, in terms of sheer platforming and execution in that way. But the same thing with Ninja Gaiden, where those 3 games are immaculate. And so, like, which one would you remove? I wouldn't remove any of them. So, I mean, that's where I stand, but I don't want to monopolize the NES
So for the sake of this, though, I'm going to leave the decision in your hands for Mega Man, Castlevania, and Ninja Gaiden.
I mean, my take is I would if I had to prune something, and I don't think the original Mega Man is that great. Like Mega Man is heavy. It feels different, as people know, than 2 through 6. Like there's just a different feel to it. The game's a little harder too, although that's not a problem. There's no E-tanks. Continuing is a little different. The boss gamut at the end is gauntlet rather is different. So I would remove 1. I mean, obviously 2 and 3 absolutely belong on the list, and I would put all of them, 4, 5, and 6 on there as well. So I don't know that you could possibly deny it, and you could make the argument that the games actually get more impressive even though they don't have the same nostalgic resonance anymore. I mean, if you look at Mega Man 6, which came out in 1993, that game, I don't even know how that game runs on an NES. If you actually look at the backgrounds, you listen to the music, it's unbelievable. Compare that game to Mega Man 1. And they're running on the same hardware. It's really remarkable. It is similar to the jump between Uncharted, Drake's Fortune, and The Last of Us. Just on a different console, at a different time, in a different era, man. I mean, forget about it. And then with Castlevania, I would make the same argument you made with Mario, where they're different games and they all belong on the list. They're all different. And obviously, I think the first and the third belong on the list. I don't think anyone would dispute that. I think the big dispute would come from Simon's Quest. And I find that game to be super underrated, specifically because of the provenance of the game, and specifically because of the influence it has on what we think Castlevania is today, which is not those games, which is Symphony of the Night. There would be no Symphony of the Night without Simon's Quest. And so I would put all 3 of them on there as well. And I'm not sure anyone would dispute that either. The bigger thing I'm curious about with you is do you think obviously the Legend of Zelda is on the list? Do you believe?
I don't know if it is.
Oh, that's.
I really don't think it is, because we got to think holistically about this, because we can't be too top heavy in the beginning, because there is so many games that come after that I want to make sure make the list. And like, while as many games per franchise can make it, I think that really does make you kind of look within and be like, well, which one should? And so I think for me, Mario is probably the hardest one to cut ones out of. But with Zelda, I think it becomes a bit more clear, where Link to the Past is a for sure for me. Ocarina is a for sure for me. Wind Waker.
Yeah, I don't dispute any of that.
Come on.
But I also would say, my theory is that from mainline Zeldas, not including CDI and all that kind of stuff, that you have from Legend of Zelda, 87 Zelda, all the way through Wind Waker, with the exception, I would say, of Link's Awakening, which is my least favorite Zelda game. I think all of them belong on the list, including Oracles, like they're all great. You know, so like this is the problem. Which one? I might maybe get my notebook and just start hashing, like doing hash marks. Just because if we want to keep it to 100, then see, this is what I'm saying is we should put everything on and then go back and remove things.
That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. But I want to still be thinking about it. I don't want to just put literally every fucking game we've ever played on the list, you know? But I agree. I mean, I get that there was a lot of amazing games back then. All right, so Ninja Gaiden, though, before we...
There are different schools of thought with Ninja Gaiden. I think the first one is the best. People think that the series gets better. It certainly gets fucking tremendously hard by the third game. I would definitely put the first one on for now.
Right,
and I think we can go back and you can make an argument for the second and third one. Those games are all good. I got them actually all at the same time. I told the story about how my brother gave them to me in a Bass shoe box as a joke, thinking that I was getting shoes for my birthday, and all 3 of them were in the box.
All 3?
Yeah. We were obsessed with those games, and I was obsessed with Hayabusa. Like, I thought he was a great character. I still think that the first one is the pinnacle of the series, although there is a massive disagreement on that. It's similar to Mega Man 2 and 3. Like, you know, maybe not quite as heated because Ninja Gaiden's not as popular.
Okay, so Zelda.
I would put them both on there. I would put Zelda 2 on there absolutely too.
You put Zelda 2 on there?
Yeah, I think Zelda 2 is so good. Well,
Zelda 2 is great, and it's definitely very special, but like, when you're talking about the top 100, I don't think it fits there. It's too difficult for the sake of being difficult, not in a fun, challenging way, just in this is bullshit way.
Yeah, I don't know. So I look at Zelda 2 and Castlevania 2 in similar veins, and actually Mario 2 in its own way, even though it's not a real Mario game, where the sequel to these established games did something different. And what I loved about Zelda 2 is that it, similar to Castlevania 2, is it had hidden RPG systems that weren't really emphasized, but that they were there and they were important. Finding like the pea bags, which sounds weird to say, around the world, and like leveling yourself up. It was similar to Simon and Simon's Quest, where there was this back end system that was never really explained, but was actually quite integral to the structure of the game because they didn't know how to put that out there yet. So I think Zelda 2 did a really interesting job, actually, of not only giving you a world to explore that was different, and I felt more meaty because of the nature of the dungeons as opposed to the original Legend of Zelda, but also giving you an interesting story without really telling you anything. The fact that you start with Zelda's like passed out body on that altar or whatever, I think is awesome. And I don't know. I don't think it's as good as Link. I don't think either of those games are as good as any of the Zelda games that came after, with the exception of Link's Awakening again. But it's a similar argument to Mega Man, where it's like, just because Link to the Past is one of the great games of all time, or Majora's Mask or Ocarina, doesn't mean that those other games aren't also 10s, because they are. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. Like, these are amazing games.
Yeah.
At the very least, if we're gonna put a Zelda game on, the first one should go on there.
Okay.
But I'm gonna, we have to kind of split the difference.
I think I agree with you in the terms of them being 10s, but I just think that 10s change over time. So it's like comparing a 10 then to a 10 now. It's like it's different. So it's like you do got to kind of think about the overall thing. But we'll put Zelda 1 on there.
Yeah, we can keep that. And then we can go really far down the rabbit hole here. I think Final Fantasy deserves to be on the list.
Final Fantasy 1?
Yeah. Super important game.
I know, but that's the thing. Important game is different than just games that we stand by. These are like I think specifically with Final Fantasy, I think that's when we really just need to choose what our favorite ones are, because obviously the franchise.
I think you're gonna have a few of them on there. I can understand the argument against Final Fantasy. My argument for Final Fantasy is, again, a time and place issue. That game was really unnecessarily deep, even deeper than what inspired it, which is Dragon Quest. And what I like about it today is that there's still if you go on GameFAQs, for instance, you can see like there's how do you get through the game with only using white mages? How do you get through the game without using magic? How do you get through, like, there's people were doing this in the 80s and the early 90s, and I think it's a fun and interesting kind of game, a class-based game. We never seen anything like that before. You saw it on PC, but not in the console space. It was a very new and different kind of game. But I understand it not being there. Dragon Quest, or Dragon Warrior as we know in it, I love all four of those games. I think Dragon Warrior 4 is widely considered the best role-playing game on the console, and so I think that absolutely belongs on the list. I wouldn't put them all on there. I think there's no need for the Dragon Quest clutter. You wouldn't be able to tell them apart.
Thinking of the Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy franchise as a whole, with all the different consoles, which NES ones do you think we need to put on the list?
For Dragon Warrior?
For both Dragon Warrior and for Final Fantasy.
Well, we only had the first Final Fantasy. I mean, are we counting the Famicom games, or are we counting where they were ported? Because we didn't play them until Origins. I mean, I never played 2 until PlayStation. And I don't think 2 or 3 belong anywhere on the list anyway. Proper 2 and 3, not 4 and 6. I think I would, since you have an aversion to Final Fantasy, which I understand, or a version of the list, I would say that you would at the very least have to put as we know, Dragon Warrior 4 on the list. I don't think anyone would dispute that either.
Dragon Warrior 4. Mm-hmm. Okay, boom. Going down with NES. Greg, do you got any?
No, I didn't play any NES.
None?
No.
0.
I mean, well, from things I've heard about or talked about, yeah, not things I've lived.
We're putting DuckTales on.
Kung Fu. Irem's Kung Fu is fucking awesome, but doesn't belong anywhere near this list.
I don't think I can put it. I don't think I can put it on this. In the same way, like TMNT, the original one. I fucking love that game.
Me too.
But yeah,
it is hard. The Irem's Kung Fu, it can be beaten in like 15 minutes. The fun part of that game is flipping the score and like getting high scores in it. But I don't think it's like an immaculate game. The sequel is fucking terrible, by the way. If anyone's ever seen it, never came out here. I'm trying to think here. Oh. God, I mean, there are so many games that I think are so special on the NES. I think I have a significant NES bias. I don't know that, like, I would put all sorts of shit on this list. So
Paperboy. I love Paperboy.
Paperboy's fun.
The NES port, or would you say that there was an arcade version of
the NES port is the one that I know the most, and I love it. I think it's perfect. I'd put that on the list. I'd put Paperboy.
I mean, if you stand by on I put all sorts of shit.
Paperboy is one I always
Paperboy
played in Mike
list.
Boylan's house.
Marvel Madness does not make it on the list.
Not the port.
Because Super Monkey Ball does make the list.
Banana Blitz?
We'll get to that. Not Banana Blitz. Super Monkey Ball 2 on the GameCube.
Gotcha.
I'll just stop because I like.
Are you sure? Let's think about that.
I mean, I look at Crystalis, Faxanadu. There's like a lot of really interesting games on here that
Metroid, I don't think needs to deserve it. Super Metroid.
Metroid. I would say Kid Icarus.
Really?
Yeah. I know some people like the Game Boy version better, and I know some people don't like any of them, even the new one. I really love Kid Icarus. Kid Icarus again is a unique game, and it's fun, and it's fucking super hard, and there's all sorts of weird systems in it. Again, I think you can make a case for that. I think you can make a case for Contra. I think you can make a case for Jackal. I think you can make. There's a lot of great games on it. That's why I'm just gonna.
Contra would be pretty great.
The thing with Contra, though, I go back to it. I think Super Contra is better. Like, I would put that on the list, like Contra 4.
Yeah, I mean, I would too. I've never been super. I mean, like, my brother was crazy about like all these Konami games.
Awesome.
Contra. Awesome. I mean, there are games like obscure fucking games that I love. Codename Viper. Like, there's a lot of great fucking games, that are. Dr. Mario.
Bubble
That's
Ball.
another one. I think Dr. Mario is one of the great puzzle games of all time.
So do you want to put Dr. Mario on?
Yeah, I think you can make the case. I'm looking at Star Tropics. Like, there's all sorts of fucked up shit we can put on the list. We can make the whole list all the NES games, Greg.
Okay.
Let's see.
Double Dragon.
No. Oh, Punch Out.
Punch Out.
Yes.
You put Punch Out.
Yes, absolutely. Now I would put Punch Out and Super Punch Out. The thing,
Really?
yeah. The thing is
I
that
feel like that's one of those ones you choose one.
then I would choose the
you need
NES.
count.
Then I
You
would
choose
Punch
NES.
Out.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Fuck yeah, I love Punch Out. Let me go back to that list. Let me see.
River City Ransom, Ghosts and Goblins,
No.
Battletoads.
Yeah, no.
I really love Ninja Turtles.
I loved it too. You're talking about not the arcade,
Not the arcade
not TMNT
one.
This is the one where you can go in the sewer, you
Yeah.
come down, you fight, you throw it to them.
I'm not
Yeah.
gonna dispute that. I think that game is it reminds me a little bit of like Fester's Quest and some other NES games where I'm like, you guys are crazy. Like these games are not nearly as bad as you're saying they are.
I mean, it's pretty damn bad. But
I don't
fucking
agree.
love it.
I don't agree. Like it's a time and place thing. Like I remember playing that game when it came out. It was fucking amazing.
And the
Like,
strategy of choosing which turtle to go and like sacrificing Raphael because no one gives a fuck about his bullshit little size spinning around using Donatello. Come on, man.
yeah,
Hey, if you guys are cool, I'm putting it on the list.
I'm fine with it.
You down for the
I really
TMNT?
do. I really do believe that people are too hard on some of these games.
TMNT.
The way people talk about
soundtrack
Fester's
was
Quest
amazing.
makes you want to fucking kill a man. You know, like I'm like, this game's awesome. You guys are crazy. Let's see what else is on here.
Balloon Fight. Tecmo Bowl.
Oh Jesus, I hated that game.
Yeah.
It's a pretty complete list.
Yeah, I think
I
we're
would
doing
add
all
more
right.
things to it, but
You like that
Power Blade. Like, there's a bunch of games that are fucking rad. But
Arkham Razor?
what?
ActRaiser.
That's
a Super
an
Nintendo.
SNES game, and yes, that will be very high on the list, of course. I'll take you all out.
19 games that we have on the NES.
Okay.
And we could go back and prune. Like, I think that eventually you can
pre-NES.
probably get rid of a couple of the Mega Man games, for instance. You could probably get rid of a Castlevania game, but we're not going to do it yet.